You're listening to The Tales We Tell, a podcast about spooky stories, unsolved mysteries, and local lore. I'm your host, Hannah Parch.
And I'm Katy.
I really almost forgot the intro there for a second. I started thinking about it. Mysteries tripped me up that time. I was like, unsolved mysteries? Unsolved stories? Is it unsolved mysteries? Yay! We're drinking whiskey today.
Mm-hmm.
It's been
It's gonna be it's been one of those weeks. It's been one of those weekends because it's Sunday. Had to pick up my kid early from school on Friday because he had a fever.
Yeah.
And he was sick and miserable, so I had to deal with a sick baby. And he still wasn't feeling great yesterday, so I had to deal with like a kind of cranky baby Saturday while finishing decorating our house and getting ready for our Halloween party. Mm-hmm. And then hosting a Halloween party all by myself.
Which was wonderful.
Thank you. I'm so glad it turned out. I kind of, like, by the time Shelton got there, I was like, I'm surprised people are still here. Like, it's kind of like a dud. And then people just stayed.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, it was
good.
All right, this is fine. And then my husband woke up at like 4 a.m. with a fever and then tested positive for COVID. So in between taking care of my child all day, I was taking care of my sick husband. And when is my day off?
You don't get one of those. You're a mom
Yeah,
now.
never.
That's why I'm feeding you whiskey. And I'm going to make brownies when you leave. Sorry.
Why didn't you make brownies?
I was busy. I'm doing so many things.
Barely eaten all day.
I'm sorry.
I also woke up at like 2 thinking I was going to throw up. Because I think it was I ate too many chicken nuggets.
Oh. I have a thing to tell you about the Frankenstein cake.
Did you turn your poop like super green?
Did!
I was gonna like mention that, like put that in the event. Be like, by the way, if you ate the Franken cake, you were gonna have the greenest poop you've ever seen.
I didn't know because I was like, I didn't really have I had like a piece, like not a big piece, but
it's the icing.
I figured it might be,
and it's not the green icing like you think.
It's the black icing.
It's the black icing because black icing is actually just really intense green.
Right, okay.
I learned that several years ago at my grandparents' like 50th wedding anniversary. Somebody got a cake and it was a white cake, but it had like, some, like decorative trim or whatever, and it was black. It looked very nice and classy and everything. Except the next day when I went to the bathroom, I was like, what in the what is going on? Am I dying?
Oh man.
And so that's why when I got the cake, I'm like, I feel like I should warn people that this is gonna happen.
Fine. I assumed that's what it was, and I did kind of think for a minute because I was like, I didn't have a lot of that cake, but I guess that's probably what it was.
Just a small slice is enough.
That was green poop today. Well, we are drinking whiskey apple ciders because it is the day before Halloween.
All Hallows Eve.
Yeah. And also, this is a whiskey drinking episode.
Bring it on.
Yep. Which is another way of saying, Dante, you can't listen to this one, buddy. Sorry.
See you next week.
See you next week, I hope. I have no idea what I'm going to do for next week. This episode is brought to you by my dad. So, Dante, if you have a bone to pick, you might be meeting my dad at Thanksgiving, and you can take it up with him then. He told me about this person that I will be telling you about, and this is one of those ones where I was like, okay, I looked up the topic, I saw that there was enough information to do an episode on, I blindly went into it and just started the notes. And then
by the time you'd committed, you realized what you
I got into some of it, and I was like, oh, this is some rough stuff. So I should probably put some content warnings in here. Again, I feel
like it being a whiskey episode is kind of a content warning.
I told Katy before we started recording I didn't write down any of my announcements. So I'm trying to think what kind of just some graphic descriptions of some violence done to women. Yeah. And shout out.
Yeah, on a happier note.
We do
for now
a shout out about we have a follow up on the bike thievery that we mentioned. Right? Was it bike thievery?
Yeah, I think that was the hoopla.
Yeah. One of our listeners / patrons, Josh.
We love you, Josh.
We do love you very much, Josh. Inventor of our drinking game, which means you got a drink there. He let us know that he is from Illinois and Wheaton, Illinois,
yeah.
Which that's not where the bike thievery happens, is it? I love that I have my notes in front of me and I could be the one telling you these things.
Yeah, I just know that it was.
Let's see.
We were talking
Where
about
did the bike thievery happen? Anyways, Josh, let us know how the crime in Illinois is. High, low,
in Wheaton, not just Illinois.
Specifically in Wheaton.
That's a broad area, and we're not assigning him homework. Come on.
This is true. Okay. Are you ready?
Bring it.
Also, I told my chiropractor to listen to this episode because I spent the whole time last week during my adjustment. We spent the whole time talking about how to kill people and get rid of the bodies, which this is my disclosure of saying I'm not planning on doing that. I just know a lot about it because of my research for the podcast.
Quick sidebar thing talking about chiropractors.
Yeah.
I've seen a couple of reels now on Instagram when I'm scrolling of a chiropractor doing an adjustment for hips.
Yeah.
Like basically just like yanking someone's leg.
I want that so much.
And it pops the hip. And it's women. And every time it's like a... I'm not going to recreate it because my dad listens to this podcast. But it's a very satisfied moan that everyone cracks up. Like the chiropractor is like trying so hard to maintain professionalism, but even the patient on the table just starts rolling over laughing because of how embarrassing the sound sounds. But I'm just sitting there like, yes, I want that.
I want those things. Yes. Okay.
I want to go to there. Somebody, because I mean, the way that my back pain is, it feels like I'm being compressed, and I'm just like, somebody put me on the rack and stretch me out.
Right.
Like, just stretch. It hurts.
Yeah.
I'm weighed down by all of my awesome. And it's just such a heavy burden to carry.
I'm telling you the things. Okay. Okay. This is a stretch. I told him to listen to this episode, which I don't think he will. But on the off chance that he is listening, this is going to be my way of asking for these things. Because my anxiety doesn't let me ask in person. I don't know how to ask a human being
Hannah
to do
wants
these things.
the sex noise hip hop.
No, I just need the thing. I need it harder. Like, I just need everything cracked and popped and like adjusted as hard as humanly possible. My back, my spine, my hips,
Your neck, your back, and your...
Listen, I know I was scared when I came in about my neck and all that stuff. I'm not scared anymore. I need my body, everything needs to, I'm old. I need it all cracked and popped and just like a slap bracelet. That's what I need. Okay. Jarek, edit that how you see fit. I don't care at this point because my back hurts, my hips hurt. Everything hurts right now. I also have terrible posture, so okay.
There's that.
All right. So back to our story. To the beginning. I'm not even going to tell you what it's called.
How to hide a body?
How to hide a body. And I share that far...
It's like hottie with a body, but how to hide a body.
How to hide a body. How to get rid of a body.
Shotty with a body.
Katy. I do credit it to you every time I tell people to wrap a body in chicken wire and throw it in a body of water.
Yep. Chicken wire, cement blocks, so it sinks. Mm-hmm. And then, as it decomposes, it'll swell, and it'll be chunks that'll probably get eaten
by the fishes. Yeah. His suggestion was the Jeffrey Dahmer way of dissolving it in vats.
I mean, the other problem, like, mine is still not a perfect thing. Like, you've got to make sure that you're dropping it over an area of ocean or a lake even that you know is never going to be found because you still have the skeletal remains.
True. I think that one's easier. It's easier to, like, establish yourself as, like, a chicken lady. Like, it's easier to be like, yeah, I bought a bunch of chicken wire. Like, I buy chicken wire every 6 months to repair my chicken fences because I raise chickens.
Chicken wire has a lot of uses outside of just chickens. People, you can put it, like, under your porch. Like, if you've got a raised porch.
Yeah.
You can do that to keep critters out.
It's much easier to justify why you bought a bunch of chicken wire and why you were on a boat, especially if you live in a coastal town, versus why you bought industrial size vats and, like, whatever kind of acid dissolves you in flesh. So, just saying, if anyone's tracing things back to you, it's just easier to chicken wire away.
Pay with cash.
Walk, I don't know. Okay, sorry. That has nothing to do with our story. Alright, I'm not going to tell you the title because I work it in much later. We're just going to go with it. You do have a dossier, by the way.
Yes.
I printed it like an hour ago. Gordon Frederick Cummins was born on February 18th, 1914 in North Earswick, North Yorkshire, England.
Yeah, figured that.
Yep. He was the oldest of 4 children. His father was a civil servant. His mother was a housewife. He received a private education. His academic performance was described as unremarkable. He completed school in 1930 and then attended Northampton College of Technology for 2 years.
So, like, just your average, like, epitome of average upbringing, like, middle class, nothing, extraordinarily good or bad, just...
Slightly more privileged, perhaps, than others.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well enough off, but not, super,
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, you can look at your first dossier picture.
Woohoo! I just wanted to point that out because a lot of the, like, horrible stories start out with horrible beginnings, like...
Oh, yeah, like abusive childhoods. And,
just atrocious childhoods. Mm-hmm. Oh, all right.
All right, I'm going to go ahead and point out the obvious. He's annoyingly attractive.
Yeah, he's decent looking.
I think he's, like...
Nice cheekbones.
Annoyingly attractive.
Nice strong jaw, too.
Okay, so Gordon was an attractive, charming young man. He's 5'7", so a little on the short side, but it's...
Short king.
It's the 1940s. You don't get to look at the other pictures yet.
I don't know what I was thinking. I'm sorry.
What's wrong with you?
I don't know what I was thinking.
Now you've seen a woman.
I was just like, no, this is a delightful story. Like a nice, charming man. Oh, nope. You hide, Mr. Sir.
Okay.
You can't come out and play again. You sucked me in with your charms and disarmed me to where I was just leisurely, strolling through my dossier before I was allowed to. Goodness.
Okay, so he's 5'7", which it's like the 1930s. I feel like that was probably like average height then, maybe. He had chestnut hair. There's a picture I didn't print, but it makes it very clear he had like light eyes. Remember that one story we covered with the brother, like the one brother that didn't die, and he had like the piercing light eyes. It's like a black and white picture, and
Is
he had
that like not the Schroeder children, but like the Sauter children?
It might have been. It was either that or it was the family.
Oh no, it was the family. I thought they all did die, where the father killed everyone after they got the portrait made.
But the brother was in town. It was like Christmas Day, and he was like in town.
We just decided not to kill.
Yeah. The one we always forget their name. The one that...
We've done a lot of these, okay?
Our listener Kelly is related to. We always forget her family's name. Listen, it's been a long time since that one.
I barely remember my name some days.
Listen, this is my second whiskey drink tonight. Okay, so he has light eyes. He has... This is me speculating. He has a smile that I imagine got him out of many a situation.
Yeah, I can see
I don't know if it's just me.
He smiles with his eyes.
He smiles with his eyes.
In this picture, you can't even really see his eyes because they're hidden in shadow. He's got a very strong, prominent brow.
Yeah. And he's also in uniform because, spoiler alert, he's going to join the military. So, that's Gordon. Okay, so in 1932, Gordon moves to Newcastle and starts work as an industrial chemist because that's what he got his degree in. But he was dismissed from that job after 5 months. And so then he goes to Northampton and finds work as a tanner. But he is fired after 13 months for poor timekeeping, which I guess means what it sounds like, poor timekeeping.
Maybe with not clocking properly.
Yeah, like not
hours.
keeping track of your hours. He was described by an employer as, quote, abnormal and dense. Just not a way you want to be described. He was apparently pretty easily distracted. He liked to drink, which will become apparent later. And he was very preoccupied with the ladies. So he's one of those attractive men that, like,
he sounds like a fratty boy.
Yeah, he's like one of those guys that, like, knows that he's charming and, like,
he's never really had to try too hard in his life.
Yeah.
Like, that's why he did okay in school or whatever, but he's never really had to try for school. He's done well with women. He just taken life easy.
Yeah. He, like, knows that girls like him and he likes them. So, yeah. In October of 1934, Gordon, who is now just 20 years old and has been fired from 2 jobs, if we're keeping track, moves to London and began working as a leather dresser in a clothing factory. I have no idea what that means. I didn't look it up because it's not important. But that's what he's doing. While he's in London...
Sounds like he just is the one that does any kind of sewing or construction of clothing with leather.
I feel like he's just barely doing his job to get by. Because while he's in London, he develops an alter ego, which just makes you love him
Jack the Ripper
even more. You're close, take a drink. You're close enough. Listen. The metal straws I gave us really help with the sound effects, right? We're so good at podcasting.
So professional.
We're so professional with sound stuff. Okay, so this alter ego, he would tell people that he was the illegitimate son of an aristocrat. And because he was illegitimate, obviously he couldn't tell you who the aristocrat was, because that would bring shame upon the family.
And they would just deny it anyway.
Of course, yeah. So, obviously, the heir, or not the heir, but like...
Well, I mean, these good looks are
obviously come from money. Yeah. And so he would tell people he got an allowance from this father who was, like, you know, obviously, like, ashamed of him, but, like...
Like, you're still my son, so I still gotta, like, I'll take care of you.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
He refined his accent to sound more posh, which I love the British. I love that there's a posh Brit. Like, listen, we're going to get into the British in a minute.
When I was in high school.
Did you have a posh accent?
My friends, Shanley and I, we would just randomly go to the Walmart and remember this is like 2 towns over. Uh-huh. Because our town was so small we didn't have a Walmart.
Oh, no.
So we had to go to the other one.
Not even a Target.
In the county. Like, we were the county seat and we didn't even have a Walmart.
Oh, gosh.
But we'd, you know, like, just walk around and talk randomly in a British accent. Just for funsies. Because we knew we wouldn't run into anyone who knew us there. And we weren't trying to, like, look cool or impress other people because we weren't talking to other people. It was just, we were weird.
Is this the
and
same
it was just
friend
a fun thing to do.
This isn't the same friend you went to Target with wearing masks over your... What kind of masks
It was the cool skeleton hoodie.
Okay. I was going to say ninja masks, and I was like, that's not right.
No, it's a cool skeleton hoodie. Man, I gotta see if Shelby has any pictures. See if I can find any pictures of us on our cool skeletons. They exist. The pictures are out there somewhere. I just don't know where.
I like that you keep calling them cool skeletons.
They were. You don't even know.
I mean, you're talking to a 32-year-old woman who walked around downtown last night wearing, like, a cloak and went to bars. So, okay. So, he had a posh accent. He insisted on going by the Honorable Gordon Cummins, and he often bragged about his sexual exploits, which I feel like people who have a lot of sex are not the people who are telling people that they're having a lot of sex. Does that make sense?
Yeah. No,
okay.
If you have to brag about it,
yeah, like,
it's not genuine. It's kind of like when I see couples on, Instagram or Facebook, like, just gushing over their significant other. I'm like, is your relationship that great?
Right.
Like, it's one thing to, like, happy birthday or, like, anniversary or just, like, a random, like, husband appreciation or wife appreciation. But when it's, like, 6 months with my girlfriend, she's the greatest, our life is the best. Yeah. And you're like, here's a handful of pictures of us being overly affectionate. And I'm just like, are you really? Is it? Okay. Is it that great?
And, like, I don't...
Suck it. Isn't that the coolest thing?
I mean, yeah, but, like, also...
But imagine that, like, 6 sizes too small. On two 20-year-old women. We were badass.
Walking through Target. Oh, my gosh.
Or Walmart, or Target. Both. We went to both. They didn't want to let us in.
I think you should order one of those. I think you should order 3 of those. One for you, one for Shelton, and one for Critter.
Yeah. They've got to be in kid sizes because it was kid sizes originally.
That's
sleeves
true.
only went down to my elbow.
That's true. Although no offense to Shelton, I don't know that he would fit into a kid's extra large. You might have to get him from, like, the hefty section. The boys hefty, tall, and I don't know what they call it anymore. Okay, sorry, we're off topic.
Wait.
Okay, so he's going by the Honorable Gordon Cummins.
Mm-hmm.
He's bragging about his sexual exploits with the ladies. Mm-hmm. Which I don't doubt that he was, like, having a lot of sex with women. Because, again, he's an attractive, charming man. But don't be tacky, Gordon.
Don't be Barney Stinson.
Don't be a Barney. Yeah, don't be a Barney. Be a Neil.
Yeah. So be gay?
I mean, yeah. Obviously.
But happily married. More importantly, happily married with 2 children.
With 2 beautiful children. And the best Halloween costumes. Have they revealed their costumes this year?
I haven't seen it yet this year.
They're the best costumes. So he's, like, pretending to be the son of an aristocrat. I feel like he's kind of doing, like, what's her... Is it Anna Delphi?
Yeah.
I feel like he's doing one of those. Mm-hmm. So he's also doing, like, some embezzlement on the side.
Nice.
To, like, kind of fund his exploits. But I feel like he was mostly doing that, where he was just, like, playing the part so well that no one was really questioning him. And probably just saying, like, well, someone's going to take care of the tab. It's not me.
It's one of those things, like, you've got to choose your lie well,
Yeah.
Something that, will get people's attention, but not too much attention to where they want to start scrutinizing it.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, just far-fetched enough.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so in February of 1935, his obnoxious lifestyle/persona catches up with him at work, and he gets fired from his job at the clothing factory. And I think it's just because his boss found out that he was just, like, pretending to be the son of an artist. I don't know. His boss just caught on to all of this and was like, I don't want to work here anymore. So he decided to join the Royal Air Force. And
Hence the uniform.
In 1936, he meets Marjorie Stevens, who was a young secretary. There's not a picture of her, sorry. And he marries her. So they court for 7 months, and then they get married in December of 1936. And then between 36 and 39, Gordon is stationed in Suffolk. And then he gets sent to Scotland shortly before the outbreak of World War II. And then in 1941, he gets sent back to England, where he is in Wiltshire.
And does his wife go with him when he is stationed elsewhere?
I don't think so. I think she stays in an apartment in London the whole time. That's my understanding based on information we will get to later. Okay, so a brief little history lesson about World War II in the UK.
Yay!
Are you familiar with the Blitz?
Yes, I am.
Okay, great. What do you know about it?
It was air raid bombing of London.
Yes. So
Blitzkrieg.
Yes, good job. So it was an 8-month period of time between September of 1940 and May of 1941.
Reign of terror.
Yeah.
And bombs.
Basically, yeah, the German Luftwaffe just bombed London for 8 months.
Relentless.
It caused 43,000 civilian deaths. It destroyed or damaged over 1 million homes. And the intention, Hitler's intention with this was to break the British morale so that the citizens would pressure their government to surrender. Mm-hmm. I did not know this. Like, I didn't know that was the goal.
It was just to crush their spirits.
Yeah.
I mean, crush their buildings too, but...
Yeah. I didn't know that. I thought it was like... I really thought it was like more of like a military strategy.
It was just, it was just like a relentless onslaught.
Yeah. Which is like kind of amazing that like the British people are so resilient.
Yeah, put up with anything.
No, yeah. Well, okay. So like the whole keep calm and carry on, like that's where that came from. They would put up signs or like literally write in chalk on buildings, business as usual. And like people were just encouraged to like just carry on as normal. We're just gonna like make it work.
Oh, hold on. Air raid siren. Let's go. Take cover. Yeah. And if we're still alive, then we'll finish the transaction.
Yeah, like they would just adapt. I really didn't know that. And like, if we have any British listeners, props to you. Like, I'm just like, I had no idea. That's kind of amazing. I need to rewatch The Crown. I just skipped ahead of my notes. Sorry. Go back. Hold on.
How dare you?
I know. My notes just skipped way ahead. So, during this time, the whole reason I'm talking about this is because the British government implemented some mandatory regulations to help protect civilians, one of which was blackouts, which were first imposed September 1st of 1939. So this is essentially British civilians and businesses were required to cover their windows with heavy materials at night so that lights couldn't be seen from the air. And the whole idea was...
thinking they'd already bombed that, or there's no one there. There's no signs of life, therefore there's no reason to waste ammunition there.
Right. Or hoping that, like, if you couldn't see... like, thinking that the lights were helping...
Navigate,
right. Mm-hmm. So they also would have, like, street lights dimmed or, like, made to point just downward, or they had car headlights were fitted with, like, slotted covers. And even after the Blitz was over, the blackouts continued for several years. And the British adapted. And
they like tradition, too.
Yeah.
So there's that.
So, for several years, carrying on into the early 40s, the blackouts were kind of a normal thing, like, in the evenings. Mm-hmm. So, that is, like, the setting for where we're going. So, that's why I'm setting the... Okay. October 14th of 1941. The morning of October 14th, 1941, the body of Maple Churchyard, which great name, Maple Churchyard. It's just...
sounds like a very picturesque location.
It does. She was 19, which I know. I tried to find a picture of her, but there was not one. She was found in a bombed-out house on Hampstead Road in London. Maple... I hate this description, so I'm going to revise it as soon as I tell you. Was, quote, known to have frequently engaged in casual sexual relations with servicemen. AKA, Maple was a young single woman living her best, freest life. Maple was just doing what young women do. She was... Okay, sorry. I just...
So, in terms of my fun, like, sports romance smut novels, she was a jersey chaser, or for the hockey ones, the jersey chasers are for, like, the football and some baseball and whatnot. For the hockey ones, a puck bunny.
Oh, a puck bunny.
That's cute.
I like that.
And then there's one that followed the bull riding circuit.
Oh!
No, seriously.
What are those called?
It was about a bull rider falling in love with someone. Yeah. See, I'm telling you, I learned so much from my books. I learned about bull riding, and I know more about it now. I could have a conversation with a bull rider.
Yeah, you could.
But that would not make me a buckle bunny.
Buckle bunny. Oh my gosh.
To chase the big rodeo buckles.
Nice. Okay, so what would we call...
I'm trying to think of, like, a military chaser bunny person, whatever she would be.
I don't know, just like a uniform bunny. I don't know.
I feel like
what about,
we would be able to distinguish it between military branches, like a
what are the, like, a bayonet bayonet bunny sounds awful.
It sounds like a bunny that's been stabbed with a bayonet.
Don't some of them wear, like, berets?
Could be a beret bunny.
A beret bunny.
I'm also thinking about something to do with wings. If anybody's in, like, the military and there's, like, a cute, maybe not derogatory, but demeaning term for women who are just, like, into, like, military guys, let us know. Especially if it's, like, branch specific. Because, like, okay, well, look at, like, Navy SEALs or whatever. They're also called frogs, right?
Oh, I don't know.
Or something with the...
Sure.
Frog hog.
I was thinking of that. What's that game with the frog that crosses the street? Frogger. Maybe like a Frogger. I don't know. All I'm saying is I feel like Maple deserved better because men in uniform.
Women who only go for frogmen, a.k.a. U.S. Navy SEALs. The frog hog.
Oh, okay.
So I was like, as soon as I said it, I'm like, I'm pretty sure that's a thing. And so, yeah, they're not frogs, they're frogmen, the Navy SEALs. Another thing I've learned from one of my books.
Oh my gosh.
Suck it.
Okay, well, all I'm saying is that I feel like Maple deserved a better description than known to have frequently engaged in casual sexual... Whatever. Maple was an attractive young woman who knew what she wanted and went for it.
249 titles read this year.
Man, you're doing way better than me. Okay, so it's just gonna go downhill from here.
So
yeah. Sorry,
they found the slut. I'm kidding. I'm not fucking
down
with this.
All right, so
good for her. Get you some Maple.
All right, so Maple was found. She'd been strangled to death with her own undergarments.
As soon as you said strangled to death, I knew that's what.
Yeah.
By what?
Yeah. Her purse had been emptied and picked through. There wasn't any evidence of sexual assault, but it didn't say whether there was evidence of like
sexual activity.
Yeah. So, and then the bruising around her neck suggested that the killer had been left-handed. So that's all we know about that. 3 days later, Edith Eleonora Humphreys, who's 48, was found lying on her bed in her home in Regent's Park, London. Edith was a widow and worked as a canteen cook. So, like, not someone who was known to frequently engage in sexual activities with servicemen. Her neighbor discovered...
So not a frog hog?
Not a frog hog, as we're calling them.
That's so awful.
We'll come up with names for, like... We'll come up with a name for, like, someone who goes after pharmacists. And then we'll come up with someone...
I think they're called druggies.
Oh, okay. Perfect. Well, Jarek was a farmhand, like a horse farmhand when I met him. So we'll come up with something.
Farm boy.
Yeah, literally
Just call you Princess Buttercup.
Listen, I'm here for that. So
I also want to clarify, too, that I am not by any means trying to, like, cut down any women who are like, if you're like, I want a Navy SEAL, go for it, girl.
Get
it.
Get you one.
Or anyone who is like, this is my type. My type is Marines and nothing else. Get it. Go get you a Marine. A lean,
my type is...
Fighting machine, Marine, whatever.
Horse farm hands. Turned... warehouse workers. Sorry, horse farm hands turned car salesman turned... I forget what job he had after that. Turned warehouse worker. Turned podcast editor. Sorry.
Turned D&D...
turned
campaign.
Dungeon Master.
Dungeon Master, that's it. That's the word.
Yeah. All of those things.
Surely there's a name for women who go after Dungeon Masters. There's gotta be.
Oh, I'm sure there's...
Dragon Tamers.
Oh my god. Oh gosh. Yours was so easy. A druggie. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. Okay. We're laughing because it's only getting worse. Okay. 3 days later, October 17th, Edith Eleanor Humphreys was 48. She was found lying in her bed in her home in Regent's Park. So she was a widow who'd worked as a canteen cook. Her neighbor had discovered her when she went to ask Edith if she had a key to her apartment, because I guess her neighbor had been locked out. Edith had been severely beaten in the face and head, and then she had also been strangled, and her throat had been cut, and then her attacker had stabbed her in the head. Also, Edith was still alive when they found her.
Ooh.
But she died shortly after she was taken to the hospital because she had been stabbed in the brain. Yeah. And I think even if it was like today, it's hard to survive being stabbed in the brain. I hate it just because that means that she had been alive for like everything else that happened. There was no sign of forced entry. Unclear if there was any sexual assault or sexual contact or anything like that. Some of her jewelry had been stolen, but both that murder of Edith and the murder of Maple were left unsolved. Although, from this episode, like, because they're included in this episode, like, I think you can kind of guess, like, who maybe did them. I'm not just
the Honorable Cummins.
I'm not just telling you about them just for funsies. We're going to skip ahead. That was October. We're going to skip ahead to February. February 8th of 1942, and the Honorable Gordon Cummins is home having dinner with his wife at their home in central London. And they have dinner, and before he goes back to base, he asks his wife if he can borrow some money, because you
borrow money from your spouse.
You know how husbands be borrowing money from wives. And his justification, which if Jarek ever asked me this, I'd be like, go f*** yourself, man. He wanted to go have a, quote, night on the town. She'd be like, no, not with my money, you're not.
The only time, Sheldon has ever asked me for money it's like, do you have any cash on you?
Yeah, exactly. It was
Because, you know, in our day and age, it's becoming less likely to have cash on you than it is a card. But that's not the case for the setting of the story.
He's not asking you for money on a Friday night because he wants to go have a night on the town. But Marjorie's a better woman than we are, I guess.
I let Shelton have lots of, like, evenings on the town. Like, on the day off, he'll go meet Connor for a beer at Surf or something, and I'm like, okay, well, I'm going to pick up our kid from daycare and then go home and take care of him, but you stay out and have a beer, that's fine.
Well, Marjorie gave Gordon a £1 note, which was approximately 50 pounds in today's money, or $60 US, which I would say is not enough for, like, a night on the town. It's enough for, like, a couple drinks. I mean, I guess it's...
that's enough for going out to the bar and, you know...
if you're gonna, like...
having quite a few drinks. But a night on the town, I imagine, includes dinner.
Yeah, but he already had dinner.
Oh, that's right.
So, I don't know.
I feel like that still should have been plenty.
Yeah.
Right?
I don't know. So, I imagine he probably kissed her goodbye, and then he left around 6:30 p.m. All right, so he leaves his wife with the...
to paint the town red.
Yes, okay.
Sorry, the whiskey's getting to me.
February 9th, so the following day. The body of Evelyn Hamilton, which you can look at your next dossier picture. Evelyn Hamilton was 41. She was discovered in a street-level air raid shelter in Montague Square in Westminster. Evelyn was a single woman who had recently lost her job at a pharmacy. Fun little relatable fact. And was about to move to Grimsby, that's how you say that, which was about 200 miles north of London, to take a new job and start over. The evening before, as Gordon was having dinner with his wife, she had gone out to celebrate her 41st birthday, and she was last seen enjoying a glass of wine shortly before midnight. When she was found, her skirt was pulled up over her hips, her underwear was pulled down, her shirt was pushed up, exposing one of her breasts, and she had several small cuts to her breast and a 1-inch cut to her eyebrow. She also had a scarf tied tightly around her neck. Scuff marks on her shoes indicated a struggle. Her purse was missing, but the contents had been scattered and picked through at the crime scene. Police later found her purse discarded and discovered that approximately 80 pounds had been taken from it. An autopsy determined that strangulation had been the cause of death, and again, bruising indicated that it had been by a left-handed person. And despite the way her clothes had been disarrayed, pathology determined that there had been no sexual assault.
I find that suspicious.
Yeah, I found that weird too. Like, oh, you can keep the dossier out because we're about to just.
Okay, we're gonna dive.
Sorry,
right in.
there's a. It's. Hate to say that there's just a spree happening.
I mean, what are they doing to determine? Like, did they just not find semen and therefore there was no, like, that's how they determine whether or not there was sexual assault?
I don't know.
I think now, today, they can do things that will, you know, identify if there's, like, some bruising or whatnot on the inside.
Yeah.
That can determine, like, yes,
sexual
activity did take place.
I don't know if they could determine if there was any, like,
activity.
Tearing or... I don't know, because I would imagine if there... Like, you know, there could be cases of, like, okay, if the killer had tried to assault her and pulled her underwear down, but then couldn't complete the action, there wouldn't be semen.
Mm-hmm.
But there would be, you know, if he had penetrated her or whatever, there could be, like, vaginal tearing or whatever.
And
bruising. Also, you could argue that any kind of, like, you know...
Even if there was no penetration, there was still, like, that to me
I was going to say
sexual assault.
That's
like,
assault, having... Like,
especially being left in such a state.
Yeah. And so I don't know if it's just like, okay, she wasn't raped, so they're saying that's not sexual assault. I don't know.
And maybe it's like they can't prove it wasn't consensual.
Yeah. And I don't know. I feel like maybe with this one they're saying, like, okay, she wasn't a sex worker. There's not evidence that, like...
She's a very severe-looking woman based on this picture.
I know. That's the only picture I could find of her, and I don't know why she looks so angry in that. Well, the next day happened, and it's just... You can look at the next... Okay. So...
Oh, my.
I know. She's just darling. So, the following day, February 10th, the body of Evelyn Oatley was discovered. Evelyn Oatley was 34. She was discovered around 8:30 in the morning, lying on her bed in her Soho apartment in London. Evelyn had only recently turned to sex work to help make ends meet during the war, and because she didn't like being alone during the Blitz. Because
who could blame her?
Yeah, she's single. It's during the blackout, so everything is dark. You can imagine during the Blitz, like, things are literally being bombed around you.
Yeah, nobody can make fun of anybody for being afraid of the dark during this time.
She actually, when she started doing sex work, she kind of made a rule for herself where she would only see older men as clients because she felt like they were safer and they were less likely to become violent. But on the night of February 9th, 3 witnesses reported seeing a young, handsome airman approach Evelyn and proposition her. And she was apparently charmed enough by him to put aside her rule for the night. She was overheard asking him about his preferences, to which he answered, quote, "I like blondes." And her neighbor, whose name was Ivy Poole, saw Evelyn and the airman go up into her apartment around 11:40. And then Ivy remembers being woken up sometime after midnight because Evelyn's radio, like, the volume was turned up. But she doesn't remember hearing anything else. And she didn't obviously go do anything because it was just the radio.
She must have seen them going up and then gone straight to bed herself.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, this 20 minutes, like, if she has, like, a bedtime routine or whatever, that's routine time, getting into bed and then falling asleep, which, you know, even on the nights where I'm exhausted, can take a couple minutes.
Yeah, that's true. And I don't know if maybe it was, like, I know it was after midnight. I mean, it could have been an hour later.
Yeah.
I don't know. So Evelyn was found naked, beaten and strangled, and mutilated. Her throat had been cut. Her abdomen and genitals had been mutilated with a safety razor and a can opener. Post-mortem, though, a flashlight had been left inside of her vagina, and curling tongs, which I think is just a curling iron, were found nearby with blood on them, and there may have been evidence that those were used to sexually assault her before she died. There wasn't any evidence of a break-in. Her purse had been dumped, although it was unclear if anything had been taken. She didn't have any defensive wounds, and police were able to recover fingerprints from the can opener and from a broken piece of a mirror that had been used to cut her. But it's 1941, so fingerprinting is still, like, a new thing. So they don't have, like, a complete database. They basically just have, like, one guy who collects fingerprints. And
then goes through the stuff.
Yeah. So, like, they get a fingerprint. They don't find any matches to the ones that they have. But they, like, keep it on file.
Right.
And then pathology was able to determine that the fingerprints, A, were from a left-handed person and that the killer had been left-handed. So they're like...
So obviously this person's also escalating too, you know, from a couple of nicks on the breast to full-on mutilation here.
Yes. Yeah,
awesome.
it's just great. Okay, so we're going to jump ahead a couple days. February 13th. So Barbara Lowe, who is 15, goes to visit her mother, whose name is Margaret Florence Lowe, or Lau. It's spelled the same way as our friends. Yeah. Margaret is 43. Barbara is going to visit Margaret at her London apartment. And Barbara went to boarding school, and on weekends she would always come home to visit her mother. Margaret had been widowed in 1932, and shortly afterwards, she sold the family business and used the money to put Barbara in boarding school. She had then moved to London and taken a job as a house cleaner, and then she would engage in sex work on the side to supplement her income, but she devoted her weekends entirely to Barbara. So she was just like doing what she could to make money, but
just single mom in it.
Yeah, but they were like very clear. Her weekends, she would spend the full 2 days with her daughter. Yeah. So it was like very normal that Barbara would come by on the weekends. But when Barbara got to the apartment building, neighbors told her that they hadn't seen Margaret in a few days, and that a package had been sitting at her door unclaimed for a few days. So I don't know who made the discovery. I am telling myself that it was not Barbara, that it was maybe the police or someone else.
It was probably Barbara.
So Margaret was found lying in her bed with the quilt pulled up to her chin. She had been beaten and strangled with a stocking. There was foam around her nose and mouth, which I think means that asphyxiation was the cause of death. I tried to look that up. I almost texted my sister, but it was late in the day. Whatever. Everything I Googled was like overdose. And I was like, it wasn't an overdose. It was something else.
That's where my brain went.
I'm pretty sure it wasn't an overdose, but whatever. The killer had used a bunch of stuff. A razor blade, a vegetable knife, a table knife, a bread knife, and a poker to inflict various injuries. All of the weapons were found either lying next to her or still inside of the wounds that they created. Her abdomen had been cut open to reveal her organs. There was a, quote, deep gaping wound approximately 10 inches long to the right side of her groin. Her uterus had been slashed, and a candle had been inserted into her vagina. Pathology determined that some of the injuries had been inflicted while she was still alive, but she had likely been very close to death at the time, so hopefully, like, unconscious.
Yeah.
And the way that it was described was, like, theoretically the killer had, like, strangled her almost to death and then did a bunch of these things. So, like, in theory, strangled her to the point where she was unconscious.
Yeah. So she was out of it and she missed.
Yes. So, like, again, I'm telling myself she was unconscious. She was not aware of these things happening. Fingerprints were recovered from the base of a candlestick holder, a glass, and a bottle of oatmeal stout, which had been left in the room. Just drank half a beer and just left it there.
Well, you know, murdering is exhausting work. You gotta carb up.
And listen, murders before DNA was an understood thing.
Jeez.
So lazy. Just leaving their DNA
all
over the
taunting.
damn place.
They were just taunting.
Just leaving a beer, half drunk in the room. Gosh, so lazy. The prints indicated that the killer was left-handed, and sources didn't specify whether the prints matched prints from Evelyn Oatley's crime scene, so I assumed that they were from different fingers. But police did, like, have enough sense to link the murders together because of the nature of the injuries. A neighbor also told police that she had seen Margaret with a gentleman client around 1:15 a.m. on February 11th, and then later saw the man leave, so it's presumed that Margaret was killed on the night of February 11th. So we jumped from February 10th with Evelyn Oatley is when her body was discovered. February 11th is when Margaret was probably killed.
He's on a spree.
Okay. Later that same day, on February 13th, you can go ahead and look. The husband of Doris, how would you say that name? Jeanette?
Yeah.
Jeanette. She's 32. So her husband came home from work.
She looks much older than 32. This is not a flattering picture.
Yeah, it's not the best picture. He came home from work and she found their bedroom door locked. So Doris was known to occasionally engage in sex work for extra money on nights when her husband was gone for work. And her husband had been a former client of hers, so he, I think,
was aware,
kind of knew what she was doing. And she only did it, like, on nights that he was going to be gone for the night. It's not like she was...
Does that make it better?
I don't know.
I mean, I don't know what their arrangement was, but...
I mean, she wasn't, like, doing it on nights that he could, like, potentially walk in on them. But I get the idea that
I mean, like, a girl's gotta do what a girl's gotta do, and, like, you know, these are hard times, I imagine.
Yeah.
Nobody knows another person's relationship, like, whatever.
I don't know.
Not passing judgment.
So,
It's unusual.
It's a little unusual. So, around 10:20 the night before, Doris had taken a shot of whiskey with a friend and told her that she was going to see a regular client known as the Captain. And then she had left. When her husband came home the next day and found the door locked, he called police. And when police got there, they broke down the door. They correctly told the husband, like, you should wait out here. And then they went inside and they discovered Doris's body. She was lying across the bed wearing an open nightgown. Her left hand had been placed between her legs and a silk stocking was tied around her neck. Her jaw had been broken before she had been strangled to death. Her abdomen, genitals, and left breast had been mutilated with a razor blade and knife. There was a 6-inch gash from her belly button to her genitals. There's a 6.5-inch wound to her vagina. The flesh underneath her left breast had been cut away. The knife that had been used to do that was left on her thigh. 2 used condoms were found on the floor. Again, just...
DNA everywhere.
DNA everywhere, exactly. Further investigation found that a gold watch and some cash had been taken from the apartment. And the autopsy later showed that her killer had strangled her almost to the point of death before mutilating her breast and thigh. And then the rest of her injuries were post-mortem. So similar to what had happened to Margaret. Again, where we hope that Doris was unconscious when everything happened. So the press wasn't really covering this as extensively as they might have had there not been, like, a war happening at the same time.
Yeah. They had other headlines.
They had some other stuff going on. But news of the murders and the possibility of a serial killer that was targeting sex workers was getting around via word of mouth. And because of the blackout conditions at night and because of the Jack the Ripper nature of the crimes, the killer was dubbed the Blackout Ripper.
I'm taking another sip just for funsies.
I finished mine, so you get to drink that. That's the name of the episode, by the way. It's the Blackout Ripper. Nice. All right. So meanwhile, it's still February 13th, by the way. February 13th is a super long day. I think it's a Friday, too, which, like, fucking sucks. So they have discovered 2 bodies. Police have discovered 2 bodies. Police are having a long day. Gordon Cummins is just, like, having a regular fucking day. So that evening, he's like, I'm just going to go out like normal and just...
Ready for another night on the town?
Yeah, just, like, proposition someone. So he goes out and he propositions a young sex worker named Catherine. I don't know how to say her last name. I think it's Mulkey. It's Mulchahy.
Sure.
Whatever. She's 25. She's kind of a badass, so just be prepared. Okay, so Catherine is like, I require £2 up front deposit. Mm-hmm. So Gordon pays that, and then they take a taxi back to her flat. Catherine takes all of her clothes off, except for her boots. And then she's like, all right, your turn. Take all of your clothes off. And then she invites Gordon to join her on the bed. So Gordon gets undressed and then climbs on top of her. But then, because he's a fucking asshole, and spoiler alert, a fucking murderer, he knees her in the stomach, pins her down, and begins trying to strangle her. But Catherine is a smart girl. She kept her fucking boots on. So she fights him off, kicks him with her boots. One source says that she bent his thumbs back and to the point where they almost broke, which I hope is true. And then she ran out of her apartment screaming and ran to a neighbor. Gordon got up and got dressed, mostly, and then followed her because he's trying to, like, play it down.
He's gotta control the situation.
Yeah. So he follows her, and he's, like, trying to apologize, right? He's putting on his, like, posh, like...
Oh, you misunderstood.
Yeah,
I'm just into, like, rough role playing. Yeah. We should have discussed this prior.
Yeah, and he's like, oh, I had too much to drink. I'm imagining... Who is the guy from... Who's that British guy from Bridget Jones's Diary?
Colin Firth?
No, the other one.
Hugh.
Hugh Grant.
Yeah.
Yes. The one who got caught with a sex worker. I think. Anyways. I'm imagining him like a stuttering, like, posh, I don't know, just whatever.
He's like, I'm attractive, so I've never really had to try.
Yeah, and he's just like, oh, I had too much to drink. Oh, you misunderstood. Anyways, so Gordon just, like, is trying to pretend like, oh, you misunderstood. I wasn't just trying to kill you, whatever. Gives her 8 more £1 notes, and like, literally is just trying to get her to not call police and just pretending to...
Just buying her off.
Yeah.
Like, obviously I don't get to murder you, so...
So just gives her some money, grabs his coat, and leaves. In his hurry, he left his belt behind. Unfortunately, because he's a fucking serial killer... And he is now unsatisfied because he didn't get to kill anyone.
He's on a spree.
He's got to go kill someone else. So he is unsatisfied. He's undeterred. So he is still out and about. He ends up at a restaurant at Piccadilly Circus where he spots an attractive young woman named Margaret Haywood. And Margaret is at this restaurant and she is waiting for her boyfriend by herself. Gordon approaches her and is very brazen and essentially offers her £30, which is like $1,000 for like a
So an
date.
indecent proposal.
Yeah. And she says, hi, I'm not that kind of girl. But Gordon is very charming. And Gordon buys her a drink and Gordon talks to her and flirts with her. I guess her boyfriend stands her up and this like attractive... charming airman is like talking to her and whatever and has offered her $1,000 to go on a date with, and he's probably like
she's probably like, there's a guy here who wants to pay $1,000 to just spend an evening with me. Meanwhile, my shitty boyfriend doesn't want to spend an evening with me for free.
Yeah, and I bet Gordon did that thing where he's like, we don't even have to do anything. Like, I just want to like...
I just want to take you to dinner.
Yeah,
I just want to be able to look at you and enjoy your company.
That are
Men are the worst.
I swear to God, and I hate that my parents listen to this, I swear I've heard that line before of like, nothing's even gonna happen. We don't even need to do anything. Yeah. It was a lie. Sorry. If any women are listening to this that have ever heard that line and they don't know, it's always a lie.
It's a lie.
It's always a lie. So her boyfriend, I guess, stands her up. So she agrees to join Gordon for a walk, which I'm sure is what he told her. It's just a walk. So as they're walking, Gordon begins to become, quote, unpleasantly forward with her. He pushes her into a doorway and tries to persuade her. I'm sorry. Attractive men just have such gall. He tries to persuade her to come with him to an air raid shelter to sleep with him? Like, to an air raid shelter? Gordon.
I feel like I've never been to an air raid shelter before, but I feel like those things would be fairly crowded with lots of people and very little privacy.
Also, man, not even like a hotel? Gordon. Oh my gosh. And so, I'm sorry. So Margaret is like, no, that's sketchy as hell. I think she says, like, I don't know of any air raid shelters around here, and also, even if I did, I wouldn't do that. No. Gordon doesn't like being told no, Of course.
Because he's an entitled little white boy.
Yeah. Whatever. So he starts trying to, like, put his hand down her skirt. She starts to try to push him away. So then he gets mad, grabs her by the throat, pushes her into the doorway, and she loses consciousness. So while she's unconscious, Gordon starts going through her handbag. But, lucky for everyone, while he's doing that, 18-year-old delivery boy, John Shine...
Is he the hero of this story?
Kind of.
All right. Other than Boots McGee.
Yeah, other than Boots McGee.
Catherine, right?
Yeah, Catherine.
I can remember that. That's my name.
18-year-old John Shine happens to be walking by with a flashlight and sees Gordon. And so Gordon runs off, and John runs over to help this unconscious woman. And Margaret is, like, regaining consciousness at this point. So John offers to escort Margaret to the hospital. Margaret's like...
You mean not to an air raid shelter to have sex?
Yeah, because John's, like, a decent human. John's, like, he's, like, literally the bar that's, like, on the floor of, like... human decency.
It's funny and it hurts.
I know, it does. It's the worst. So, on their way to the hospital, they encounter a police officer. And the police officer is like, hey, before you go to the hospital, why don't you come to the police station with me and I'll get your statements first?
No. Police officer, why don't you follow us to the hospital and you get a statement at the hospital?
It's the whole...
Because medical attention comes first.
Yeah, whatever.
No, whatever.
I know.
That's how it should
they
be.
do it the other way around, but whatever.
They're wrong. I think it's because she was probably okay immediately.
Yeah.
And I think the hospital was just like let's just make sure there's no, like, long-term lasting things. Yeah. But, like, obviously she wasn't currently bleeding profusely and dying or whatever.
So, Gordon, meanwhile, has run off to a pub and realizes that he left his Air Force-issued gas mask and backpack behind. And...
It's adorable that they just carry those things around at that point.
Right? And at least one of those things... has, like, a number on it that can be traced to him.
Is his belt also Air Force issued that has a number?
It is, but it never really comes back up.
What?
I know. I kind of wish it did.
But I thought the whole thing about you mentioning that he left his belt at Catherine's place would be, like, the tie-in, like, to tie him to those two. I mean, I guess other than, like, obvious eyewitness testimony or whatever, but...
I thought it would too, but then it never came back up. Sorry.
Weird. I'm unsatisfied.
Me too. Gordon's like, I left those things behind. So he's like, I gotta quick make something up. So he's like, I'll just steal someone else. So he steals another soldier's gas mask and backpack and then goes back to base. And he's like, this will just be my, like, in case anyone asks me why I don't have one, I'll just have one. But meanwhile...
And he's like, oh, we must have gotten them mixed up.
Yes, idiot. But meanwhile... John Shine, 18-year-old delivery boy, has picked up Gordon's gas mask and backpack and turned them into police because he's our little, like, citizen hero.
Big time hero of this story.
No, little baby John. Okay. So, Detective Thomas Shepard is, I guess, like, the detective on duty when they come in, this, like, woman and an 18-year-old. And he contacts the Royal Air Force Police, and he's like, hey, I've got this backpack, and it has this regimental number printed on it. The number is 525987. Can you look that up for me? And this is like a shocking case of like things working correctly. So
the systems in place actually worked as they were supposed
exactly.
to. Wow.
So
you don't hear about that often.
I know. So the Royal Air Force Police look up the number and they're like, yeah, that belongs to Gordon Cummins. And so by the following morning, February 14th, Detective Shepard is formally questioning Gordon about the attack on Margaret. So he's like, what happened? Gordon's like, I don't know what you're talking about. I was out drinking. I remember talking to a woman. I remember walking with a woman, but I was really too drunk. I don't remember a lot. I remember once I realized I was out past curfew, I hurried back to the base. He said he didn't have any memory of attacking anyone, but if he had, he would pay compensation for it. When they asked him about cuts and bruises on his knuckles, he was like, oh, that's from working on an airplane engine, you know, whatever. So they're like, okay, sign the statement, you know, whatever. As soon as he does that, they're like, okay, cool. You're under arrest because we don't believe you. So they arrest him. They charge him with causing grievous bodily harm because obviously nothing about his story makes sense.
Strangling a woman until she loses consciousness. Yes.
Yeah.
That would be grievous bodily harm.
So while he's in custody, police are like, we're just going to search your stuff real quick. Because we can do that. Because you're in custody. So they search his quarters and they find items belonging to 4 of the victims of the Blackout Ripper. Oh, that's weird. One of them...
coincidence.
What a funny coincidence. One of them was a metal cigarette case belonging to Evelyn Oatley. They also found traces of blood on one of Gordon's shirts and inside of one of his belts. They found traces of distinctive brick dust mixture that was consistent with the air raid shelter where Evelyn Hamilton's body was found. They found that inside the cuff of one of his pants. They also matched his left little finger and thumbprint to the prints they found on the can opener and broken mirror pieces at Evelyn Oakley's crime scene. And this is the best part, 2 of the £1 notes that Gordon gave to Catherine Boots McGee. When he was trying to convince her that he hadn't tried to kill her.
No, he gave her the 2 notes as the down payment.
Right.
He gave her the others as...
So 2 of the 10 total.
The hush money.
Yeah. So 2 of those were brand new. And police were able to trace the serial numbers.
Let's say were their consecutive bills.
Yeah, and determine that they had been issued to Gordon on February 12th. Plus, Margaret Haywood was confidently able to identify Gordon in a lineup as the person who attacked her. So, Gordon, of course, is like...
Screwed.
I don't know what you're talking about. I'm innocent. I didn't do any of this stuff. He claimed another airman had switched out his gas mask and backpack in an attempt to frame him.
Nope.
Obviously. He said Margaret was mistaking him for someone else. I don't know what his explanation was for the blood and Evelyn's cigarette case and his fingerprints, like, all over the crime scene, but whatever. February 17th, which this timeline is amazing. This is like 4 days after 2 of his victims were found.
This is an effective police force.
Right?
So.
Like, World War II really kicked everything into gear. On February 17th, Gordon was charged with the murders of Evelyn Oatley, Margaret Lau, and Doris Jonet. On February 20th, he was charged with assaulting Margaret Haywood and Catherine Boots McGee. And on March 27th, he was charged with the murder of Evelyn Hamilton. I don't know why we never charged anyone with Maple Churchyard's murder.
The MO was kind of different enough. That was before he was like really getting into his thing. Like, that was just strangulation.
That's true. So the trial began on April 24th of 1942, and it lasted 4 whole days. This was only for the charge of murdering Evelyn Oatley, and we've seen this before. Presumably, it was because they had the most evidence for that
case. Go for you only charge for your slam dunks.
Yeah.
Because, you can't, what is it, you can't be charged for the same time twice.
Double jeopardy.
Yeah.
Or at least in the States.
So, basically, it's, go for, like, your surefire thing first.
Yeah.
Make sure you've put this person behind bars, and then take your riskier shots.
Yeah.
It sucks as far as justice goes for, the victims' families, or, victims themselves. But I think the most important thing is getting them off the street.
Yeah.
And then trying to get justice for everyone.
Yeah.
It sucks that you can't always get that, but...
Yeah. Gordon pled not guilty. Surprise.
What?
The prosecution relied heavily on the fingerprint evidence, and the jury returned a verdict after 35 minutes. And they found Gordon guilty. And on June 25th of 1942, Gordon Cummins was executed by hanging, which I didn't realize they were doing that in 1942, but I guess they were. And this kind of sucks. I didn't mention this, but his wife, Marjorie, like, stood by his side for this, like, whole thing, which, like, even during the trial when he's, like, testifying, like, for himself in his own defense, he's, like, testifying. He's like, no, I was with Evelyn, but, like, she was alive when I left. Like, he's, like, testifying, like, no, I was with all of these sex workers.
Yeah,
and,
no,
like,
I definitely slept with these other women.
Yeah, and I'm like...
Hey, honey, how's it going? Thanks for being here.
I'm like, Marjorie, your husband's, like, a piece of shit. Like, even if you don't think he killed these women, like, girl, like, you deserve way better. Like, how about that John kid? Like,
you don't know what she was doing while he was on base,
I know.
Right?
I hope she was, I don't know. But here's a fun little fact about his execution. There was an air raid happening during it, and he was the only convicted murderer in British criminal history to have been executed during an air raid.
Funsies.
So, it's a little fun fact there. And police do strongly believe that he's responsible for
Maple.
Well, everyone else.
Yeah.
So Margaret,
everyone that we talked about.
Yeah, everyone that he was charged with. But that is the story of the Blackout Ripper. I kind of thought it was going to be an unsolved case when I first looked it up.
Uh-huh.
And the very first thing I looked up was his name. And I was like, oh, never mind. And then, yeah, like, several bits in, I got to, like, some of the more gruesome stuff. And I was like, oh.
And you kept it tame for us, I could tell.
This is going to be one of those. One of those. So,
well, if you want to see pictures of some of these poor victims and the charming devil himself, and also the skeleton hoodie that I mentioned, I took a screenshot of that. This is not the exact hoodie, but it's very similar to the one that I have described.
It's an adult one, so.
Yeah. So, but imagine an adult wearing a child-sized one. It makes it even cooler. I'm telling you. You can find all those pictures and more on our Instagram and also Facebook at The Tales We Tell Podcast. And if you want to see these things, but you don't do the social media, you can check out our website, thetaleswetellpodcast.com. And if you want to support us and get yourself some sweet, sweet swag, like a Murder Cabin hoodie, which I left at the murder cabin. That's my... I wanted to have, like, a couple of, like, articles of clothing there as backup of, you know, in case, you know, we go, but I need an extra layer of clothes or something. I definitely left my murder cabin sweatshirt up there.
Nice.
You can find all of that, your sweet, sweet swag, and more at redbubble.com. Search The Tales We Tell. And you can also become an awesome patron, like our friend Josh.
Hello.
Please tell us how things are going up in the Wheaton, Illinois. Actually, I don't know. He doesn't live there anymore, right?
I don't think so.
Anyhow.
I don't know.
I think he just said he was from there.
Yeah.
Hey, Josh. What's up? You can be an awesome patron like Josh and others by going to patreon.com, search The Tales We Tell. You get, you know, bonus content, early access, commercial-free listening, shout-outs, stickers, and love notes from us.
Yes. And our undying love. Always.
Always.
You always hold a special place in our heart.
Gentle listeners.
Gentle listeners. And, hopefully next week we'll have a more Dante safe
non-whiskey episode.
Yeah. I was going to say, if you don't know, Dante is
he's our young mascot.
Our young mascot. He's, God, I forgot how old he is. 9?
I thought 9 was what you told me. That's what's in my head.
I think he's like 9.
He's probably like 12 and we're insulting him greatly.
He's not 12. He's definitely 9 or younger.
Okay.
I don't know. He's like, I think he's like our nephew. I say our nephew. He's like,
your nephew. Your/Jerk's.
He's the podcast nephew.
Podcast. I would love to have a nephew. I only have a niece.
Oh, great. Well, come Thanksgiving, if he comes down, you're welcome to meet him. He's a great little kid. But we base episode appropriateness on whether a worldly 9-year-old should listen to it or not. And hopefully next week's will be slightly more appropriate. I have no idea what I'll be doing for that because life is chaos.
No dead babies. That's all I ask.
There were no dead babies in this one.
I'm very happy with that.
Lots of dead adults.
Yay.
But anyways, we'll see you guys next week.
Bye.
Bye.